How are we doing today? Good. Man, it's good to be in God's house with God's people. Amen. Okay. It's just me, okay? Thanks for just indulging me in that moment. But I look forward to this every week. There's just something that cannot be imitated anywhere else. And believe me, I'm all for online things and all that, but you cannot replicate being in God's house with God's people. And it's just good to be there. So we're glad you guys are here with us. We're in the midst of a series entitled GPS, and over the course of these 3 weeks, we're talking about our gifts. Was what Dr. Joe talked about the last week. This week, I get the opportunity to talk about what it is that we get passionate about. And next week, we have an amazing gift for you. As we talk about our stories and being shaped by our sufferings, Dr. Ajay Lal is going to be here. And Dr. Lal runs an organization that we financially support in India called Central India Christian Ministries. And it is a very vast ministry from hospitals and clinics and things like that all throughout India. And right now, he is a fugitive in India. He is not allowed in his own country. He escaped. He and his wife and family were going to be killed. They had his house surrounded. And just by the grace of God, there was a 30-second window where there was a lapse in what happened there. And he and his wife were able to go over the back fence of their house and get away. And they got out of the country on a technicality. But he is a wanted man in India 100% because he shares the truth of Jesus Christ. He's preached sermons with the red dot from sniper rifles on his chest, saying anything that you do to incite a riot, we will shoot you. And thousands of people. I thought I was a really big deal because nearly 5,000 people heard my Easter message this year. Nearly 5,000 people listened to my Easter message. And I thought, man, that's pretty cool. 3.5 million people heard Dr. Lal's Easter message this year. And I'm like, yeah, Goucher, you got a ways to go, buddy. You got a ways to go. But anyway, he is going to be here with us next week, and it would be a great week for you to bring a friend, and do not miss it. You guys know I typically don't hype up things, or we typically don't even really advertise who's going to be preaching from week to week because we don't want to be personality driven. It's not what it's about here. But next week, when Dr. Law is here, you're going to want to experience that with them. So it's the middle of a great series that we're in right now. And when we talk about suffering, the guy has an amazing story. So as we talk about passion today, I started with this idea of like, what is it that I've been passionate about my entire life? Not just from time to time. I have these kind of times when I get really excited about something for a while. Maybe you're like me. And I've had these seasons of getting really excited about things, and it lasts for a while. I'll get a hobby that I'll just kind of go all in for a while. There was a time when I was a student pastor, I was really into guitars, and I learned to play the guitar. I was buying and selling guitars, and there was about a 3-year period. That was my deal, and I was kind of doing that, and I thought, oh yeah, but then it's just kind of like, no, don't really do that anymore. And then there were other things, and I've thought about, I've collected things. I've like, oh, that interests me, or I've read about things. I've just absorbed things for a while, and it just kind of fades in and out. For the last about 6 months, I've read 7 books. When I say read, I've read 2, listened to 5 books on the White House. Did you even know there were 7 books on the White House? I'm just fascinated by the structure that is the White House and the whole idea of the presidency and what goes on there and the whole idea of this institution. So I've poured into that, and I'm just like, and now I'm like, yeah, I can find something else now. Kind of got all I can out of the White House, okay? But what is it the thing that I've been passionate about my whole life? Don't hate me. But it is my beloved Oklahoma Sooners. Okay, now here's the deal, okay? Do with it what you will, okay? Here's the thing. I grew up in Oklahoma. I am a fan, okay? And you have your fans and you have your teams, and that's great. I love that. I respect that. You're wrong, but I love and I respect it. Okay? So here's the deal. I grew up in Oklahoma. all throughout the 70s and 80s. You can literally see the football stadium from my house, okay? So when I say it was inside of me, it was part of who I am. In the fall, you go to the football games with Dad. That was it. Some of my core memories with my dad going to football games and cheering on the Sooners and the whole thing and all this kind of stuff. Well, here's what I realized later on in life is that passion, although it was fun in the right context and all that kind of stuff, it got out of control. It got out of control. And I would get upset, like physically upset when they would lose. My whole day and weekend, and sometimes my week was ruined depending on who they lost to, okay? It could be ruined. And I'm sitting here thinking, my emotional well-being balances on the athletic performance of 18 to 22-year-old kids that I don't even know and don't even know me. How dumb is that? Right? But that's what we do. Well, this kind of all came to a head in the year 2000. Well, in the year 2000, Oklahoma had this magical season, undefeated, national championship season, the whole thing. Well, there was one game late in the season when they were playing Texas A&M. And during this game, Oklahoma's losing late in the game. Texas A&M has the ball and are driving. Oklahoma's down 4 points, okay? I am sitting at my house with my 4-month-old daughter on my lap, okay? She was 5 months old at the time. 5-month-old daughter. See, I can remember more about the game than my daughter, okay? That's kind of, sorry. Okay, so my daughter's 5 months old at the time. She's sitting on my lap, and I'm watching this game. The Texas A&M quarterback throws an interception. The Oklahoma linebacker, Terrence Marshall, runs it back for a touchdown with just a couple minutes left in the game. I jumped up and literally tossed my daughter in the air. I made the greatest catch of all time, rescuing my daughter, diving, saving, catching her. In that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I almost dropped my daughter because of this stupid football game. It manifests itself again. We started the church, and this was years later, 2008, 9, starting the church and all this kind of stuff. Church is growing. We've got all these things. We've got Saturday services are looming. We're like, we're going to have to do Saturday services. And I'm like, no. We're not doing Saturday services. I'm like, we got to do Saturday services. And I will confess to you that I made church decisions based on my idolatry of a passion. It's like, no, we put it off too long. We put it off. I admit that. That's your pastor. Because of my idolatry over this passion that I had, a misguided passion. And you're thinking right now, well, we don't have Saturday services now. What do you do? Just hold on, okay? You see where I'm getting at? Passion is a good thing when it's guided in the right places. But sometimes our passions, our hobbies, the thing that we love and they're good things in and of themselves, they take control and they become idolatrous. And we start to make plans on our calendar because of these things. We start to make plans on our budget based on these things. We start to figure out how we're going to guide and parent and direct and all these kind of things based on hobbies or passions that can be misguided. They start to run us and control us instead of us controlling what could be a good thing. So, when it comes to passion, how do we find out what it is? Some of you can say right now, man, I am so passionate about X. I'm so passionate about this. I'm so passionate about that. Okay, we could start there, but we're not. We're going to start in talking about passion by finding out what it is that breaks God's heart. What is it that God is passionate about? What is it that God sees as worthwhile and good? And what is it that breaks his heart? And how do we align our hearts and our passions with God's heart and his passion? Because when we can do that, something incredible happens. So I want to share with you this story from Jeremiah chapter 8. In Jeremiah chapter 8, the prophet Jeremiah, he's pleading on behalf of the nation of Israel. Because what's going on is God is fed up with Israel again. Okay? And they'll do what is right in the eyes of the Lord for a while, and they get blessed, and all these really cool things happen, and then they turn away and they start doing their own stuff, and things start drowning, things go bad again, things get bad, and they go, oh, we got to turn back to God, and they go turn back to God, things get good again, things are good, sailing along. They say, oh, well, we can handle this on our own, we'll do our own way, and it's just kind of like this, kind of like our lives. Like us, if we're just honest. It's really easy to praise when things are good. Man, God's good all the time. When things are going the way we want them to or we think they should, man, things are great. And then something happens. Like, oh, yeah, I don't know. God's not here. He's far away. I don't know where he's at. And we start doing things our own way. Well, God's way's not working because I'm not getting what I want. And we start to kind of process through that, and we run from God. That's what we do. And so this is what the nation of Israel is doing. And so Jeremiah, he's pleading with God. He's like, God, what's going on? And so in the verses before, in Jeremiah chapter 8, God basically says, I'm tired of this. He goes, all these mood swings. I'm tired of Israel just throwing these little tantrums like kids. He goes, they don't get what they want. They throw a fit. And he goes, I'm tired of it. And so Jeremiah's heart is breaking for the nation of Israel because they're turning their back on God. And this is what it says in Jeremiah chapter 8, beginning of verse 18. Jeremiah speaking, he says, my grief is beyond healing. His heart is hurting so bad, he doesn't think there's going to be any relief from the pain he's feeling for the nation of Israel and the way they've turned their back on God. He said, my heart is broken. And he cries out to God. He's having this conversation with God. He says, God, listen to the weeping of my people. It can be heard all across the land. Has the Lord abandoned Jerusalem? The people ask. He's like, where are you? Is her king no longer there? The people are saying, where are you, God? And this is the way God answers. He says, oh, why have they provoked my anger with their carved idols and their worthless foreign gods, says the Lord. You know what he says in this moment? He goes, they have been wasting their time on a bunch of foolish stuff. They've been putting their hopes and dreams, emotional well-being in the performance of other things. They've been putting their hopes and dreams in the athletic performance of 18 to 20-year-olds who they don't even know, who are far away, and they find themselves dissatisfied. Time and time and time and time again. They focus on the wrong things. He says the harvest is finished and the summer is gone, the people cry. Jeremiah's like, come on, what do we do? We're not sure that we're going to have enough food. He said, yet we are not saved. He says, I hurt with the hurt of my people. I mourn and I am overcome with grief. Is there no medicine in Gilead? He goes, what are we going to do? Is there no physician here? Who's going to solve this problem? Why is there no healing for the wounds of my people? Jeremiah's heart is breaking for these people. He is passionate about restoring the relationship of the people of Israel and God. That's his passion. It's broken his heart. So first thing we ask ourselves is, what is it that breaks God's heart? Well, first of all, God's heart breaks for his children. All of his children. That's for us. It breaks for those who have loved him and who have stopped loving him. It breaks for those who've never known him. It breaks for those who are just trying to figure out who he is. It breaks for those who have walked with him for years. It breaks for injustice and oppression. It breaks over sin. It breaks over disease, loss, grief, confusion. Anytime you're in pain, the Father's heart breaks. And a lot of us maybe have said the prayer, God, will you just break my heart for what breaks your heart? Or maybe you remember that old praise song that we used to sing, open the eyes of my heart, God, because I want to see like you do. I don't know that we could handle that. I don't know that we could handle seeing all of the grief that God sees. If our heart broke the way God's heart breaks, if we were passionate about the same things God is passionate about, we would feel how our own sin breaks God's heart. Those lies, those times of gossip, those times of theft, those times of indulgence, all those things, we would feel the way God feels about that. We'd feel how our own sin breaks God's heart. We would feel our hearts breaking for people who are far from God. We would feel our hearts breaking for people who seem hopeless. Our hearts would break for those who live in this amazing amount of poverty, extreme poverty, for abused, for persecuted, for oppressed people. Warson Shire, who was a great theologian, he wrote this in a poem. He said, later that night, I held an atlas in my lap. I ran my fingers across the whole world and whispered, where does it hurt? It answered, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. There's things that can break God's heart everywhere. And a lot of times, we don't understand the way that God hurts. So here's what I would ask you to do. Let's find out what it is that breaks your heart. What is it that breaks your heart? Does it connect with the same things that break God's heart? What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that God has fueled inside of you an amazing desire, an amazing ability for, amazing competency in right now? What has He fueled in you that can ultimately be used for the kingdom? What is it? What breaks your heart? Whatever it is, my guess is this: it's easy to ignore. It's easy to ignore, and maybe you've even stopped thinking about it because you're like, well, I can't, or we get caught up in other things. We get caught up in our career, our family, our hobbies. You get caught up in Netflix, for crying out loud. We get caught up in reading books. We watch movies and read books about people who do these amazing things, who live these exciting lives, who live out their passion, knowing full well that God's designed us to do something great like that, but we're content with just watching someone else live out their passion. And we think that's good enough. Oh man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. What is it that captures your attention? You can't keep ignoring it. God has instilled something in you. And my guess is there's something that you need to do about it, something you have to do. So what is it that fires you up? Pastor Bill Hybels called this your holy discontent. What is it that gets you so passionate and so fired up you need to do something about? My guess is that's where your passion begins. Maybe it's when you see immoral business practices. Maybe it's when you see someone die of cancer. Maybe it's when you are around or you see extreme poverty. Maybe you see racist behaviors, the effects of prejudice. When you see abused children, homeless people, when you see a marriage that's falling apart, when you see kids growing up without dads, when you see young people who drift away from God. Do any of those things stir you? You're like, yeah, I think I could do something about that. Yes, that makes me angry. Yeah, I want to do something about it. My guess is that's where your passion begins. Fred Bucher, he says this. He says, your calling in life is where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. Check that out. Your calling in life is where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. What is it inside of you that fires you, that fuels you? I want to tell you the story about Austin Gutwing. Okay? Austin Gutwing, we've got a picture of Austin right here. Okay? Here's what's really cool about Austin. Back in the early 2000s, Austin was 10 years old, and he had watched this video from this little girl in Africa who had been orphaned by AIDS. Both of her parents had AIDS and died, okay? And his heart was broken for this orphaned girl. And he wanted to do something, and he just felt like he had to do something. It broke his heart. So he called World Vision, this group that he knew did some things to help people in Africa. So he knew, he called them and he asked, hey, how can you help? And they asked him, what do you like to do? And he said, well, I like to play basketball. And they said, well, maybe you could do something with basketball that would help kids in Africa. So Austin decided to ask people to sponsor him in a basketball shot-a-thon. Okay? and he decided that he would shoot 2,057 free throws. 2,057 free throws, and that would be equal to the amount of children who would die in Africa while he was in school that day. So I'm going to shoot 2,057 free throws. He asked people to sponsor him per shot. By each free throw he made, people would donate so much money. Austin raised $3,000 doing that. But he wanted to do more. So that's $3,000 is cool. That's a great start. But his passion wasn't quenched, and he still had this desire. So he got his friends involved, getting sponsors for them to shoot foul shots. And eventually he started this organization called Hoops of Hope. And before Austin graduated from high school, he had raised $2.5 million for orphans in Africa. Where your passion and joy meets a need. Where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need is where your passion begins. So I ask you again, what is it that breaks your heart? Whatever it is, are you doing anything about it? Are you risking anything? Are you willing to help? Are you willing to say, with God's help, I will do everything I can to make this right? And some of you are sitting here and you're thinking, well, I got a couple things that really fire me up and that get me excited and I get passionate about and I wish it wasn't there. But I don't know if I'm really going to do anything about it. I'm probably just going to leave here and not think about it again. And you think, well, I care deeply about it. But you know what? It's not enough to just care. It's not enough to feel bad. If we're going to pursue our passions, we have to do something. And it's not just for you that you do something. It's not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's for our world. Your passion is designed to help our world. What chances our world have if we do nothing? If your God-given passion is never lived out? Or maybe your passion and your energy has been misguided into something that doesn't make a difference. Maybe it's a temporary hobby. Maybe it's a short-term decision. And we've put all of our efforts and all of our energies into something that's going to go away quickly. Or from 5 years from now isn't going to matter at all. I have a pastor friend who made this declaration. He said, if it doesn't matter, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, I'm not going to spend more than 5 minutes at a time at it. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, I'm not going to spend more than 5 minutes at a time doing it. That's a priority of passion. And so what is it that you're doing for God with your passion? If you believe in Him and you love Him, do it for God. Because if we just sit idly by, what happens is there's this world that's watching us. There's this world of non-Christians who are staring at us as Christians, wanting to see something different from us. They're wanting to see different, better behaviors. They're wanting us to see us, they're wanting us to live like Jesus lived and model that. That's what they're waiting to see from us. And they're just waiting and watching. And we claim that our guiding principle is love, but we don't take action. We don't do anything to follow those passions to make the world a better place. And whatever it is, I bet it breaks God's heart. Whatever your passion is, whatever that thing is that stirs you inside, my guess is it breaks God's heart. So, how do I follow my passion? Quickly here, we're going to drink from a fire hose here. First of all, you got to lead with compassion. Sometimes we get so passionate about our area that we don't understand why everyone's not passionate about our area. Okay? I don't understand why everyone can't get behind this, because everyone is not designed to have the same passion as you. You know where this manifests itself most in the church, and what I hear most in the church is when it has to do with our missions. Why don't we just focus locally on missions? Why don't we just focus internationally on missions? We've got enough progress. And people, they get caught up in those things, in those moments. Well, first of all, Scripture tells us that we're supposed to be here in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and all the ends of the earth. We're supposed to go everywhere. But we have people who are passionate. Their passion, their stirring, is for foreign missions. We have people whose passions and stirrings are for local missions. And sometimes what happens is we as Christians see those as being in conflict with each other when actually they're complementing each other because it allows us to fulfill the purpose of the body. How cool is that? So stop fighting each other about it. And say, man, that's your passion and that's your deal. Hey, you want to help the homeless? Help the homeless. I'm not called for that, and that's not my passion. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pour into students who are falling away from their faith. You pour into that. Guess what? You're both right. And you're both following your passion. And when we all follow our passions, amazing things happen for the kingdom. But we got to lead with this compassion of understanding. Not everybody's passion is the same as mine. It's like everybody's hair color is not the same as yours. Eye color is not the same as yours. We're not the same. Your passions may be different. And that's by design. Next, how do you follow your passion? Expect to be afraid. It's going to be terrifying. You're going to have to take up some steps. I think most people don't do what God's calling them to do because they're afraid. I can't. I'm scared. Every person's always had that excuse. If we let all fear stop us, no one would ever take any action to make wrong things right. I was terrified when we started the church. I was terrified. I left a great job, a great church. Man, I had like health insurance and all the stuff. It's really kind of cool to have when you have a family. And step out of that, we're going to start a church. We started a church in 2008. You know what the economy was like in 2008? People say, this is never going to work. I know, everything tells me I shouldn't do it, except the one thing that screams at me that I have to, and that was God's still quiet voice saying, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. We stepped out in faith. We were terrified. Missed out on a lot of things. All I just poured into that. And man, I look back and it's just like, that was the greatest time ever. It was the greatest time ever. And I'm always reminded of that. And my passion for the church is refueled every time somebody says, I met my spouse here, or we met here, or we got in this life group. We've met these lifelong friends here. And I don't say this in any sort of arrogant way, but those things would have never happened had the church not started. And I was just a part of that. I was a conduit for that. I take no credit for anything that's ever happened here. But it's just like, man, how cool is it that God used that to do these things? And it's just been really cool to see. Moses was afraid. David was afraid. Noah was afraid. Time and time and time again, people are afraid. So you're going to be afraid. But finally, I would lead you to this. Expect to fall down. There's going to be times when you mess up and you do some things wrong, and maybe you didn't get it right the first time. But if you spend most of your life sitting on the couch, watching TV, wondering what you're going to binge next, eating Doritos, but today you say, you know what? I don't want to do that. That's not the way I want to go out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to look back on my life and say, man, I watched every streaming show ever on Netflix, but I didn't really do anything for the kingdom. We don't want to go out that way. That's not the legacy we want to leave. We don't want the legacy we lead to be people like, man, that guy could watch TV like nobody else. Nobody wants them that said about them. No one wants that. Oh my gosh, they looked wonderful in their pajamas. Oh my gosh, they, sat quietly by themselves in isolation, never did anything. That was wonderful. No one does that. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. It's going to take a first step. But you're going to have some success, and then you're going to feel defeated at times. But God's going to show up, and he's going to do really cool things, because when you're following your passion and it matches with the need of something that breaks God's heart, you're going to fall forward. You're not going to fall backwards. You're not going to fall down. You're going to fall forward. What would it look like if we were a church that lived on passion? If every one of us was living out our passion? I'm going to tell you what would happen. This entire valley would be transformed. This entire state would be transformed. This country would be transformed. If we, just us, in this small C church, if every one of us lived our passion, it would change this world. It would change the world. How cool is that? Galatians chapter 5, verse 13 says this, "For you have been called to live in freedom, my brothers and sisters. But don't use your freedom to satisfy your sinful nature. Don't just hoard your passion. Instead, use your freedom to serve one another in love." Your passion is designed to be outside of yourself. And that's where fulfillment comes. And that's where a lot of us, that's why our hobbies fall short. That's why I can't place my hope and trust in the Oklahoma football team. Falls short all the time. They're awful, okay? They're awful. I can't put my faith and hope and trust in that. It's going to fall down. Any hobby that I might have, it's going to go away. But when I do something for someone else, that's when I find my freedom. That's when I find my passion. When I live outside of my own self. Ecclesiastes chapter 9 verse 10 says this, whatever you do, do well. For when you go into the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. When you go to the grave, you don't want people saying, man, they could watch Netflix like nobody. We give our time away and we miss our passion because of distractions that don't matter. And we sell ourselves short. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, maybe we shouldn't spend more than 5 minutes at a time doing it. But if it's going to matter in 5 years, we probably ought to pour into it. We probably ought to pour into it. You've been given gifts. You've been given a passion. And next week we're going to learn about how your story plays into this. Because God's given us this guidebook on how to live. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. Let's pray together. God, we love you. And we say thanks. Thanks for the way that you show up, for the way that you guide, the way that you protect, the way that you fulfill us in ways that no one else can. God, we love you. And we say thank you.